Yeah, while we wait for people to join, I'll share my screen. Okay. There you go. Okay, I think there's a parallel space running. I didn't know that that space will be on. I don't want to disturb their space, but if they're running, that's fine. But I do need certain speakers to come up if they can. Yeah, Chardi Kala Jay, Dr. Sabi. Okay, so I think they're all there. How do we check with them? Boxer ji, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਚੈੱਕ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ should I come to their space and repurpose that space? Okay, you can't hear anything. Okay, let me. Oh, you can't hear anything. Okay, let me see what's going on. Hmm. Um, Pujang ji, you can't hear anything. Can you hear now? Okay, I'm just checking if you guys. Okay, so there's one request for a speaker. Okay, perfect. अच्छा ਤੇ ਉਹ ਲਾਈਵ ਸਟ੍ਰੀਮ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਮੈਂ ਚੈੱਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੱਸ आ रही है okay I can see Amrish Puri ji has just confirmed so that's good enough Boxer ji if you yeah if one or two people more can take a speaker I think I'll make a short presentation in today's space and then we'll discuss I want to discuss some of the events which have happened recently especially the one that happened yesterday there have been an ugly event wherein a Hindu temple in San Francisco has been defaced by certain miscreants and this is not the very first instance which has happened. Similar such instances have happened in Australia, Canada, and now we have it happening in USA as well. And there is, I believe, a sinister kind of conspiracy going on behind these events. So it's important for people to understand what's going on, so we can make the right, judgment about why this is happening, who is doing it, and how do we make sure that the communities handle it appropriately. With that being said, let's just quickly dive into the presentation and then we'll have a quick discussion. Okay, great. So this is when the news came up. You can see in the pictures, there are certain pictures up here which I have put up. This is the Swami Narayan temple in Hindu temple in California. It has all kind of slogans, obviously bad in taste. One of them is like Modi is a terrorist, Shaheed, Martyr, Bhindranwala, and then there's another word, terrorist, and then F Modi, Jindabad, spellings are all over the place. But so these are like I think the main sign of the board of the temple was defaced, one of the walls, and there's another wall which was also defaced. And I think this happened I think on December 22nd when these kind of pictures came out. Very surprisingly, these pictures came out, but the mandir does have CCTV installed at all places around, but they have still not shared any CCTV footage, which kind of raises some questions, which, because now that this is kind of almost very similar to what happened in Australia and what happened in Canada. And I'll give you some context of what all happened in Australia and Canada. So in Australia, early part of this year, there were certain Hindu temples which were defaced. Very similar graffiti that you see here, and there was a lot of hue and cry. These were Hindu temples, and many local organizations came out and they started blaming actually the movement of Sikhs, which have been going on for a peaceful referendum for getting an independence for the state of Punjab in India. So there were a lot of accusations that this defacement has been done by those groups, and actually it led to some violent, not violent, but I would say some pretty ugly clashes between so in where the Sikhs will come out, making some kind of procession for the referendum, and then there'll be a counter protest by some of these Hindu groups trying to kind of protest against the defacement of their temple. Even this became even a diplomatic issue. Like PM Modi came to Australia and he raised it with the Prime Minister of Australia, specifically very vocally, that he feels that his Hindu citizens or diaspora is not safe in Australia. So it became a big diplomatic role. And but later on, it was very surprising that there were, I think, two or three temples which were defaced, but none of the temples actually thought it was okay, or they actually refused to share the CCTV footage. One of the temples claimed it was dysfunctional, the other temple just said they don't have any footage, while all of them had CCTV cameras, which kind of set the alarm bells ringing between the law enforcement that what's going on here. And after a deep investigation, the police in Australia, especially I think it was the New South Wales police, which kind of arrived at the Queensland State Police, which kind of then arrived at the conclusion that this defacement of the Hindu temple was probably done by some Hindu youth themselves to create a kind of a false flag operation on most probably the instructions of the Indian consulate, and kind of create a fake false flag operation and then kind of blame the Sikh organizations, and especially the organization name as Sikhs for Justice, because that is the organization which has been very critical of the Indian government and is also running a referendum, a peaceful referendum for right of self-determination of the Sikh minority in the state of Punjab in India. So apparently, the report that the investigative report finally was released based upon a request for information that was put in by one of the community members, and it kind of said that the police saw actually a Hindu hand itself connected directly to the. They didn't make it out in the investigation report. It's connected to the Indian government, but I think it's kind of Indian government got connected due to the fact that the Prime Minister himself raised it. The Indian Prime Minister came to Australia and started raising it. It kind of, with the, you don't need a rocket science brain to kind of understand what's going on here. So that was an ugly incident, which caused also alarms in the Australian national security establishment about foreign interference, foreign interference by a foreign government on Australian soil, trying to create divisions or trying to create unpleasant communal situation between the Hindu and Sikh diaspora. The Hindu and Sikh diaspora, has been living very peacefully both in India and abroad, and there have never been such instances until this very ugly incident came to light in Australia. So that was one big flag. But now, if this was just constrained to Australia, it would have been okay. But we actually saw similar cases happen in Canada. So where another Hindu temple, same modus operandi, that the temple was defaced, with same kind of slogans, which were like pro Khalistan, anti Modi, and then the CCTV, for some mysterious reasons, of none of the temples were actually capturing any video at that point in time. And the police investigation report, and so nobody's arrested till now in Canada. No arrests have been made that I am aware of, and I believe that the investigation reports have been kept under wraps, because eventually it is all connected to the Indian government. And but it did raise a lot of now concerns within the Canadian security establishment, and that's why there was a talk of that we need to include Indian government foreign interference in the very public inquiry that is going on currently in Canada about foreign interference in Canadian affairs. So similar, modus operandi in Canada. The Indian consulate is basically hiring some local extremist Hindu youth, sending them in to deface the temple. It's sad, but it seems like the temple authorities also get involved at some point in time in this operation, because they never share any CCTV footage. For none of these instances, not a single instance. They're like, I think 2 or 3 instances in Canada, same 2 or 3 instances in Australia, and all of these temples had CCTV footage, and none of these CCTVs actually worked. So yeah, I don't have to kind of say what's going on here. A similar false flag operation also took place in SFO, in San Francisco consulate, wherein a video came out showing that there was some kind of fire which was lit outside the consulate. Later on, we figured out that nobody got arrested, and it was a fake video. And what we know from a very now, from reports, is that actually the consulate probably was involved in this false flag operation, due to which I think the name of the diplomat is Mr. Nageshwar Rao, who was the consul general. He was actually politely asked to leave the consulate even before ending his tenure. And last I checked, I think he's posted in Kazakhstan. So it basically, like, now, even in this instances, it was a very shady video which came out at first. Once we saw that video closely, we quickly realized, netizens quickly realized that it's not the same, even the same building, and the fire has been taking place somewhere else. Somebody made a video and then kind of shared it on through a very dubious Indian government connected TV channel. It's called Diya TV. It's based in Seattle based. And Diya TV said, oh, we basically checked the veracity of the video from the Indian Consul General, and he confirmed that this incident happened. But next day, neither the police confirmed. The fire brigade said, yeah, there was some kind of a garbage fire, but it was somewhere else. Everything was kind of made hush hush. No arrests were made, apparently because there was nobody involved in it. And the only thing we know is that the Consul General himself was asked to politely leave, and he is right now sitting in Kazakhstan. So this is another instance which we can safely kind of mark as a fake kind of an instance created to defame the Sikh for Justice referendum that is going on. And then there have also been some other cases of causing communal dissensions. The very popular one, the very, I would say, public one, is in the Westwood Mall, which happened on the Diwali night. In the Westwood Mall, every year, both Sikh and Hindu youth get together, and they actually burst crackers, firecrackers, which is a very traditional thing to do on this festival. Not a great place to do it. It's a bit of a nuisance, but it's a tradition, something that you always allow youth to do on such occasions. And there was never ever any issue with this for more than 3 decades. This has been going on. But this year, suddenly, on this firecracking event, there were 3 or 4 cars arrived, and with some youth with Indian flag with them. And they took out the Indian flag and they started waving it in the face of the Sikh youth who were there, and started shouting some slogans to provoke them. That kind of led to an ugly kind of an incident wherein the Sikh youth then brought out Khalistani flag, etc., etc. And though it was not like these kind of instances do happen in a society, but why I kind of highlight it here is this was the first time such an event happened, and when you look at the video, it seems it was very deliberate. Like there were certain youth who were prepared to, who were kind of instigated by somebody to go there and do this particular act and provoke this clash. And I'm going to throw my hat out there and say, there is probably an Indian government hand behind this as well, because Hindus and Sikhs, they have been celebrating Diwali. Hindus, Sikhs call it something else, Hindus call it something else. It's a joint festival for both of them, and there have never been an ugly clash. The communities live together, and they share sweets with each other. They have no reason to clash with each other until and unless somebody from outside is kind of instigating it. And then there was this, hue and cry, this statue which came out, a 55 feet statue right in Brampton, which is a Sikh majority area actually. And the statue is kind of now standing out like an eyesore in that whole locality. Nothing wrong with it. Everybody is entitled to practice their religion, but there are valid questions, why this kind of a very huge statue was made. There are many beautiful Hindu temples with all kind of statues, all kind of ways of worshipping, but this was made as something to really stand out and basically provoke a debate about multiculturalism. Even some of the conservative Canadians started objecting around it, and it seemed as if it was basically made to provoke a debate about just whole immigrants, and create kind of a dissension within the community out there. This got constructed, even I believe, without taking in the views of all the residents who stayed around that area. Nothing wrong in it. Just want to clarify, but it did cause an unnecessary debate. All this is happening. I think we have to see it in the backdrop. The backdrop of all of this is the referendum that Sikhs for Justice is running for the right for self determination of Sikhs in the state of Punjab in India. And in retaliation to that, we now know that Indian government has been sending death squads in Canada, in America. We have confirmation that one of the Sikhs was Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was assassinated outside a Gurdwara with 6 assassins pumping in 50 bullets in his body, was actually done by the Indian government. Now, the US have also accused India that they were also planning murders, like multiple murders, not just one, of different Sikh activists in America. And then there are accusations and very, I would say, sound accusations of a murder of another Sikh activist in UK, Sardar Avtar Singh Khanda. So it's kind of now known in security establishments, as well as the top newspapers are talking about it, that India is running a secret global assassination program, specially targeting the Sikh activists who are demanding a peaceful referendum in the state of Punjab. So that is the background. We have to keep that, is kind of, it is in that context. I think we can understand this instance better. So here is where I would love to, take people to come take some speakers. I kind of just laid out the lay of the land, what is going on, and this happened in Australia. We got the police report now. It has happened in Canada. We saw the SFO instance kind of played out, and then now we were thinking this will come to a stop, but we have this defacement of the Hindu temple in San Francisco, a totally dastardly act, whosoever did it. But the question arises that there are again huge questions about Indian government role in this, because again, as the pattern shows, none of the CCTV footage is available from these temples again. So the question is like, what the CCTV stopped working? So I have no doubt in my mind that this is again one of the similar handiworks of the Indian government, like they did it in Australia. Their consulates basically motivate some local youth, some local extremist Hindu youth, and tell them to go and secretly kind of deface some of these Mandir walls or signs. Somehow they are able to take cooperation from the Mandir authorities as well, because somebody cooperated from inside. Otherwise, there would have been CCTV footage. So if that is the case, um, the real question is, Um, like, why is the Indian government doing it? That's my big question. Because if we really have to understand, how to react to this kind of a sinister attempt, I would say, to cause dissensions within community. It's important to understand the motivations that a foreign government has to do it, and it is. We also have to keep. So that's why I want to open it up right now. If people want some speaker, they can come up. Let's try to understand. Why? What is the end goal here? And then probably we can write those down, and then we can probably agree on what is the common theme here, and understand the why. Once we understand the why, then we can probably discuss that how we should deal it as a society, and as responsible citizens. With that, I have Rola's hand up. While Rola takes the mic, I'll also like to request other listeners to please come take speaker, come up, and we can have a quick discussion and hopefully wrap it up soon. Yeah, Rolaji, go ahead.
Hi, Ajit. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So,
Yeah, just one sec.
no,
Just one sec. Just one sec. Let me connect
yeah,
this
sure,
to.
sure.
Let me just connect this to. Okay. For some reason, I am not able to connect. Just one sec. Let me connect it here. So, um, yeah, Rola, if you can speak now.
Yeah, thank you, Ajit. So, I think, I think there's a dearth of investigative journalism in our community. I think that is required. If you can just dig deep into, these events that have happened lately in the last 2, 3 years, I think these can be easily brought up, and investigated properly, and found, when the reasons could be found out who's behind all these events. Not necessarily what I think is that the government is all the time behind this in government of India. I understand from how we, encounter different people from with different opinions and observations on social media. And there are a lot of Indian pros as well who try to vilify the other communities, minorities and all that, and oppressed, traditionally oppressed groups. So not all of them are paid by the government, right? And I have encountered many people who are like self-appointed pawns of the government, and they just, try to bash or run a anti-narrative what actually the reality is. So I think not all the time the government is behind it. But yes, having said that, we need more people who can just investigate these events properly, and I think there wouldn't be bad people in all the communities. Once we bring this up and bring the truth out, I think people would understand from the other community also that they are bad people and they have to eradicate them.
No, I'll just have to say. So, no, I would say I think it's 100%. I'm like 99.99% is Indian government, and I'll tell you why.
Well,
Because
they might have,
no, 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 they're
with
not
government,
might.
but not that they
No,
also
no,
funded
might.
by the
I'm
other.
talking on based upon evidence. It's not on probability. If you have to go by evidence, you have to conclude it is the Indian government. There's no other conclusion you can come at. Because Hindus and Sikhs, look at the data. They have the most cordial social relationships. There's not a single instance of Sikhs going and attacking a Hindu temple or Hindus and mass attacking a Sikh temple. Any time that have happened, it has always been the Indian government or somebody kind of having an ulterior motive to start a kind of dissension between these communities. Between themselves, if you go to Sikh temple, the majority of the pilgrims are actually Hindus. Look
Exactly.
at
That's
the
what I've been saying. Yeah.
hold on, let me complete. Yeah. So look at the data. The most commonly peaceful state in India is Punjab. In all of India, there are communal rights and issues between Hindus and Muslims, Christians, blah blah blah. But Punjab is the most communal peaceful state. There's absolutely no issue between the Hindus and Sikhs. The I the only if in Australia, see what happened. Somebody came in, defaced the Hindu temple. The CCTV stopped working. So how did the CCTV of one temple stop working? There are three instances which happened. All the three mandirs CCTV didn't work. Do you think like the people colluded just locally? Okay, fine. Let's assume that the collusion was such that three temples colluded with that group to kind of do it. But then what happened is that the Indian Prime Minister comes and then rakes up that issue at a diplomatic level and says that, oh, so you see the time the Indian Prime Minister comes and tries to use that instance to put pressure on the Australian government that you are not doing enough. So he is implicating himself, his interest there. Then on top of it, if you have not read the Australian that report of the police investigation, they actually caught an infiltrator. They said one of the individuals actually got took a job as a translator with the police, the local police, and they kept informing these people about whatever the group that was doing these acts on what the police is doing. And then once this guy was deported from, like, one of the main guys, actually Australia actually deported him ultimately. His name is Vishal Jude from Australia. The Indian government actually, rather than persecuting him when he landed in India, he should have been persecuted. They actually gave him a hero's welcome.
Yeah, he was Garlanded and he got a grand ceremony when he arrived.
Yeah.
I remember that. So
Yeah.
3 years ago.
So the government didn't prosecute him. So the government was with him. So the government, the role of the government was to prosecute him. So the Indian government hand was amply clear. Outside of Australia cutting diplomatic relationships, we can't have asked for more evidence. And so when you look at the totality, it is amply clear. This is foreign interference. This is not communities fighting organically with each other. These two communities never organically do such acts. Never, ever.
Yeah.
Not in the 500-year-old history.
I think you have a point. One thing I want to.
So my question is, if we say that it is the government doing it, my question is to you is, why they are doing
your
it?
voice is not clear.
Oh, sorry.
Not clear. You've changed something. You did something.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. So my question is, if the government is doing it, why do you think they will do such an act? That's what I want to hear. Like, why?
Well, they want to portray the Sikh community as they are like, they vandalize and they're hateful. They're not peace-loving people. They want to malign the community. I don't see any other reason.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to just write down some of these. Malign Sikh community. I will take down notes here, right? We will then. I have a hypothesis. I don't want to just lay it out immediately, but that's one of the obvious reasons that put these things up and like do this defacement and then say, oh, Sikhs do it, and then like these are violent people, they are attacking Hindus, blah blah blah. So there's definitely an element of that. Any other reason that comes to your mind?
I think there's a large section of Sikh community that is, they want a separate state of their own. I think they also probably want to, just malign the movement. This could be another reason. And this, and you should also, you must have observed this. These attacks or these vilifying actions have increased after the farmers' protest. These were not present, prior to that.
Yep. That is correct. But this is also what any other reason that comes to mind? Yeah, malign the Sikh community. Malign the.
One more observation. You also must have noticed after the farmers' protest, the Punjabi and Haryanvi farmers came together. They showed the brotherhood, camaraderie. They came together, and majoritarily the Haryanvis, they are either non-believers or they are Hindus, and a few are Sikhs there, right, in Haryana. So they want to probably, divide the, they want to create a rift among the communities. Probably this would also, help them doing these things that they would create a rift. I think that's one. But what I want to do is just finish my point, what I was saying earlier. I think even if the government is behind these events or not, the Hindu community in Canada should realize that they are a minority in Canada, and Sikhs are also a minority. And historically, there was never, they have been living in cohesion for a very, very long time. And they should realize that what they're doing, even if they're doing on the behest of a government do change. So they should be careful.
No. Okay. If you don't agree, the government will. That's fine. I'm questioning. The first thing is like what we should do. No.
If they are or if they are not.
No. Hold on.
They should not work on the behest of a government.
Okay. No. Hold on. That's fine. The question is, this act happened. So you're right. What we should do, we'll come to that. But I'm right now interested in why this act was done. We'll talk about who did it, but why this act was done. And I think you gave very good points. This act was definitely to malign the Sikh community. It could be to malign the Sikh for Justice movement. It could be to break the communal harmony between the Sikhs and other communities back in India, because Sikhs have they enjoy these tremendously good relationships with Sikhs, with Hindus, especially within Punjab. Punjab, I just want to reiterate. Look at the data. Punjab is the most communally peaceful state in the entire India, and where Sikhs are in majority and Hindus are actually minority. But there is never a communal riot in Punjab. Never, ever.
Exactly. After I think Kerala, number one is Kerala, second number is Punjab. There are at least number of regional, communal, and caste-based violence.
Yeah. So the question is why this is happening here. So why somebody is doing this kind of a dastardly act when we know that communities have no blood with each other. So somebody did it, and that's what because once we understand the why, then we can understand, what to react, how to react.
Yeah, you also should know, that Sikhs are present in Canada for the last 120 years. They're not new migrants. Naturally, there are new migrants that are coming in, but historically, Sikhs are there for the last 120 years, and they have a robust reputation. They don't have a bad reputation. They have a very good reputation among the white communities and other native communities as well. So these all verifying the Sikhs would probably help them to give them a bad form or shape in Canadian society.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll move on, and I've just right now, just for people who are just joining, we just discussed the instances of defacements of Hindu temple which happened in California. Again, no CCTV footage available, similar to what happened in Australia and in Canada. And we know in Australia, eventually the police report said it was done by some of the local Hindu youth, potentially inclusion with the Indian government. So right now we kind of looked at that background. Right now we're discussing why this act was done, and we want to. It's more like a working discussion right now. I'm going to jot down the points that what could be the possible reason, what is the end goal of this dastardly act, whosoever did it, and then we can understand how we should handle it as responsible citizens. Yeah, Nonihal ji, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting discussion, Hajifaji, which you started yesterday on the reasoning behind why all these incidents were happening. Just before joining the space, I just came across this interesting article which was published in Hindustan Times. Hajifaji, I've pinned it above in the space if you want to take a look at that. So this is from Tanvi Madam, who's a senior fellow into Brookings Institute, and the article is actually written by Dr. Aparna Pandey. Just to give you a little bit of a background on her credentials, so she basically is part of the Hudson Institute, which is one of the most influential, you can say, think tank in the US, and Aparna Pandey is known for openly advocating or writing pro-India articles. So I mean, this is just to set the stage from where that is coming from, and she's very influential, one of the most influential person when it comes to pro-India, think tanks and all these other institutes all across the US. So this article is basically pointing to the same thing which you discussed yesterday, where even if you just read the heading, so it says India's sense of grievance over the refusal by Western governments to act against groups located in the countries that advocate violence against India. And the next line is very interesting, and that should put more perspective to it. It says it was Khalistan advocates who brought violence over Indian issues. to North America. And if you keep on like reading the article, like unfortunately I don't have a subscription to Hindustan Times, so I was not able to read the full article. But the main essence, based on what I was sharing about, is how all these so-called Indian issues are being brought to Western soils, especially in the US, and how all these incidents are causing a spat between the communities and communal disharmony and whatnot. So I think like coming in from Aparna Pandey, like it definitely puts some sort of weight in the theory which we were discussing yesterday. Yep, that was like my 2 cents, and yeah, please continue.
No, great. I think we are kind of getting to the real hidden motive here. So I'm just writing down your point. Basically, create an impression that Indian issues are impacting peace within West, right? Or immigrants. So create an impression that immigrants.
I'll tell you the exact. I'll reread the exact line. So it was written like it was Khalistan advocates who brought violence. That's the key part. Violence over Indian issues to North America. That's the exact line which she quoted.
Yeah. So, but what is the end goal like? So that's right. That's what she's saying. But if you want to take it one step further, by saying this, what is she trying to achieve? If you want to go there,
I think like the objective is pretty clear over here. So it is an attempt to suppress the right to sovereignty or right to self-determination movement, which is the campaign is like headed by Sikhs all around the world, and all of them are most of them, I would say, are Western citizens. So it is a clear attempt on silencing the voices, which are basically exercising their freedom of speech, the freedom of expression in the Western soils. And I really don't know like how Aparna Pandey think like that India or any other think tank has authority to suppress the freedom of speech and freedom of expression in the West.
Great.
And I don't even know how this is, why she's quoting violence without any persistence linked to that particular movement which is heading. So I'm not aware about any direct connection. So yeah, it's pretty clear what they're trying to do over here.
Yeah, and I wrote down, and you probably are not able to watch. I'm live streaming it as well, and I'm noting down all the points. So this is what I wrote out. It's create an impression that immigrants are importing Indian issues into West, and then use that impression to pressurize Western governments to silent dissent against the Indian government. And basically say, oh, this is an Indian issue. If you're going to talk about it, if you're immigrants, diaspora is going to raise human rights issue in India. This is almost akin to like importing violence into West. So you see, like you create some ruckus, and then you say this ruckus is created because your citizens are raising human rights issue within third world countries. So basically silence your citizens from raising human rights issue between the third world. That is the end goal. Did I capture it correctly? That's what you're trying to say, right?
That's exactly what it is. And I'm like, it both puts more weight to the theory that we were discussing yesterday and even today, coming in from the top think tank. So this is exactly what they're trying to do. That's where the narrative is coming from.
Perfect. Yep. So I noted that point down as well. And Chardi Kalaji has joined. Rolaji has his hand up. Rolaji, go ahead.
Yeah. I haven't read this article as yet, but I don't also want to comment on the article because I haven't read it. But what Nihal Singh ji has just narrated, a few lines from the article, I think it is simply whitewashing. You're just trying to negate the cause of it, the genesis of the problem. When you ask the questions like who, where, when, this is all absurd. These are absurd questions. You have to ask why. Why is this a pertinent question? Why are certain people who were the most patriotic people in the country also hostile towards the Indian government? Why are they so active? So they were not like this 30, 40 years ago. What has happened? What has changed? So, we know that,
No, Rolaji. No, Rolaji, you are asking the wrong question. Just hold on. You're asking the wrong question. The question I am asking is, why is this act done? So that's what I'm more interested in that. Not, why
Yeah,
Sikhs are doing referendum.
just-
That's not
I would
the,
just-
no, just hold on.
Yeah.
That's not the question here. The Sikhs are running a referendum or commenting. That's not the question. Is why was this Mandir defaced? That's what I'm interested in. Chardikala ji, go ahead.
First of all, I want to say that this defacing the Mandir it's a quite hideous and bad thing to do, and as we noticed that it happened multiple times, multiple locations, and this is definitely not any Sikhs work, because that's not something Sikhs do. In fact, if we look in the history, Maharaja Ranjit Singh donated a lot of gold for the Mandirs, and we're noticing there's a lot of defacing happening now. Some of the reports came out of Australia. The police figured out and sort of noticed that wherever defacing happened, they can't find any evidence. And there was one evidence that came out, and there was a black car with Haryana written on it. That was one. Even the police statement stated that they find that it's somewhat fishy that it's happening, because the surveillance videos are completely missing in every single event. So I just want to highlight the fact again. It's quite a bad thing to do. It's a religious place, and whoever did it, definitely not Sikhs. It is a bad thing to do. I want to bring your attention, and it's quite related to the ripple effects it's having right now. It's related to the 55-foot statue of Monkey God Man. I'm going to play the sound. Let me know if you can hear it. Just give me 1 second.
City of Brampton, Ontario, Canada, put up this massive statue. Now, here is the problem with that. This statue is a middle finger to Calistanis and to Muslims. Now, I'm not supporting Calistanis or Muslims, but I will say that Calistanis and Muslims are going to react to this. There will be a vast amount of destruction done to this statue and the property surrounding it by Islamic groups and by Calistani groups who cannot stand Hindus. Canada has become a battle zone, a five-way battle zone between all of these religions that came from the Middle East and South Asia. And this battle zone, which had nothing to do with Canada, is now what Canada is completely and totally all about. You know what will happen, though? When Muslims destroy this statue, Christians, white Christians who look like me, are going to get blamed for it. Canada, I'm warning you in advance, this is going to happen. Get ready.
You heard that, right?
Yep, heard it. Yep, go ahead.
Yep. So as you can see, this statue and these defacing Mandirs are pulling in the people, hosting countries into as well. And that's something, I'm going to leave that to you to sort of decode it further, but the mess is being created by one community, and they're precisely pushing things into the right direction, and that is to cause chaos and divide the communities further. And that never happened before, and that's one thing really important to look at. Sikhs been living here for a very long time, and this issue never happened before. Sorry, I'll let you guys continue the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll quickly recap. I basically gave the context on, as I started, I kind of gave the context on this ugly incident, which has nothing to do with anyone. Police have not found out who did it. The CCTVs mysteriously stopped working. A Hindu temple gets defaced, which is suspiciously similar to what happened in Australia, wherein a Hindu temple was defaced. The Indian media and the fake media, they just ran this story as if the Sikhs did it, and basically it was done exactly before the Sikh for Justice referendum was to take place. And then the police reports later came out which indicated that it was the Indian consulate which financed, some local extremist Hindu youth to do this defacement, to malign the Sikh freedom movement, which has nothing to do with religion. The Sikhs are living with total peace with Hindus, but basically the idea was to make it a Hindu-Sikh issue and divert the attention from the overall struggle that the Sikhs are running for, the tyranny that they undergo under the Indian state. So that thing came out through the investigation report. We saw the similar tactic in Canada, and then we have the other instances of which kind of were provoked by this foreign government. The instances in Westwood Mall again provoked. The Sikhs and Hindus never do these kind of instances. These were outside elements which came in, instigated that kind of a ruckus, and potentially on behalf of a foreign government, and then they are, I think, being very successful in doing it. So the question we are trying to understand is why the Indian government is doing it, why they are indulging in these cheap tactics. And I have a hypothesis. I have still not fully laid it out. I've kind of given you a hint towards that, but so that we totally understand their motivations, and then responsible citizens can handle this situation accordingly. With that, I'll first go to Sandupaji. He generally has a very, I would say, deep take on this, and he understands these kind of actions from the Indian government way better than probably any one of us. So, Sandupaji, please go ahead and kind of give your comments. Feel free to add anything from your side and what's going on here.
Thank you, Ajit. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for giving me time. I have nothing much to say. I just want to know, Chardikala played audio. Who's the guy? Just want to know that.
Chardikala ji, are you here? I think he just left, I think.
Okay. I just wanted to know that, who's involving Khalistanis and a religious statue. I don't know. I was like, no worries. You guys are doing good. Just keep going. I just wanted to know. That's all. Thank you.
Sandupaji, if you can stay back, I want you to stay back when I go to the conclusion. And I want you to add to the hypothesis whether we have arrived at the correct conclusion, why this is happening, right? So I think your inputs will be much appreciated there. That's where I think we need you the most. So let's keep running the discussion. Ranveer, I think it's Ranveer. The question is, try to remain to this question, because now I'm going to stop this question. I'll start taking to the hypothesis. Why do you think this is happening? Why was this act done? Go ahead, Ranveer.
Right. So I personally think it's their incompetence. I don't think there's anything smart in doing this, right? So I think they have failed in the diplomatic front. They have failed in trying to engage the U.S. government, and they have to resort to this kind of propaganda in order to make their point. Okay, that's my personal take on it. But I think
so. When you say to make their point, to make their point, what do you mean? What point are they trying to make here?
Well, the point is that they're trying to show there's extremism going on in America. Hey, it's our community that's under threat. If we are the victim. So it's like no, we're not the perpetrator of violence. We're the victim of violence. Even though they're sending people in America and trying to kill Americans, so they're trying to basically trying to shift all the blame on America, and they think it's gonna work. I mean, that's the stupid part. I mean, they think by doing this kind of propaganda, they're gonna be able to get away with it, But they don't understand that the law here works based on evidence, right? There is zero evidence to support that any Sikh or any Khalistani was behind this, And it's not the first. This is not the first one. Remember, the very first thing that they tried to do was try to put that consulate in fire in San Francisco, and then they had this propaganda TV, Dia TV. I don't know if you heard of it. Those guys also do great Indian propaganda. Again, they started to blame Khalistanis and Sikhs for no reason, right? And nothing came out of it. Nobody's ever been arrested. No one's ever been charged. So I don't think. I think this is gonna. I think they're gonna catch fire when some Desi idol gets arrested. Then they're really gonna get it. But I think right now, I mean, it's like the whole election Daniga. They're trying to do this, thinking they're gonna get some kind of a surety from America. I think it's not gonna work. I think it's gonna be complete failure. And they're going to divide the community, right? See, most Indian Americans here, that they're pretty smart. They have they can look at things objectively more than Indians in India, right? They don't necessarily fall into the propaganda, right? So they think like upon we do it like it's us versus them, it's Hindu versus Sikhs, right? So like don't listen to any objective points Sikhs might raise. Don't listen to their grievances. It's us versus them, So that's my personal take. Right?
Got
Thank
it.
you
Got
very
it.
much.
Got it. Okay. So I'll just lay out the hypothesis why this is being done. Okay. Because we have taken enough points. Rolaji, just hold on, and I'll give you the mic again. But this is why this is going on. This is not about. I don't believe this is about showing Hindus as victim. I don't think this is about breaking down communities. I think the end goal is plain and simple. They want to delegitimize the Sikh demand, the Sikh political struggle for freedom through a peaceful referendum, and convert it from a Sikh struggle against tyranny to a Sikh versus Hindu communal issue. The moment you make it a communal issue that this is Sikh versus Hindus, then it is no longer a political issue where a minority is demanding a right for self-determination. And the Indian government is rattled by this movement called Sikhs for Justice, which is running this peaceful referendum, which has actually exposed the Indian government's tyrannical nature to the entire world. So they are figuring out different ways how they can divert, delegitimize, and reduce the support that that movement is getting worldwide. So their favorite tactic, the Indian government's favorite tactic, has been to basically convert a political movement and label it as a communal fight between communities. This happened. Why I know this? Because this is exactly what Indian government did in 1980s. In 1980s, the Sikhs had started a political movement, a peaceful movement, where for demanding autonomy for their state of Punjab in India, which was a Sikh-dominated state. And the way Indian government reacted was not to have political discussions based upon, whether this demand can be met constitutionally or not. What they did was they took certain Hindus out on public buses, killed them. They basically ran a whole campaign that this is Sikhs which are out to create a theocratic state and to suppress Hindus. And their idea was to just create this impression that this is Sikh versus Hindu. This is not a political demand for reform, constitutional reform, for more power to the people on the ground. So a movement which was inherently a movement for federalism, which was a movement for getting more autonomy for the province, the Indian government was successful in labeling it as a religious fight between Sikhs and Hindus. And they sent an army to kill, an entire generation of Sikhs and persecuted them for almost 1 decade and even maligned them worldwide. Even today, if you ask any Sikh or any Hindu who is not from Punjab, he will always say, oh, that was some kind of a communal thing. But it was not. It was made communal by government of India very successfully, because it controlled all media, it controlled every avenue, every semblance of power in that. And now what is happening today in front of our eyes is basically a repeat of that same tactic. The goal of these defacements, I would say self-engineered defacements, these are not done by Hindus. Hindus are actually, if you go to Gurdwaras, majority of the people you will find in Gurdwaras are Hindus. Hindus and Sikhs live in perfect harmony in society. The problem is when the government of India is not willing to have a political discourse with the movement, they want to convert it into a fight between Hindus and Sikhs. So what happens is they have created this event, even this statue, and they have created a debate around this statue. Oh, this is so ugly. They will have their own, media kind of create these false debates online, and then they will expect a reaction from the reactionary Sikh youth, and even the Westwood Mall kind of an engineered fight that was made to kind of create a debate in the society, Western society, that there is some Hindu versus Sikh fight which has come onto our shores, and then use that as the moment that happens, then all the support that these movements like Sikh for Justice gets today will really reduce. Because what is at the core of the Sikh for Justice movement? The core of it is a core democratic demand that people have a right to self-determination. And because that is at the core of the demand, everybody supports it. Nobody can say, oh, you don't have the right to self-determination. But if Indian government is able to engineer these communal instances and turn the narrative from it is a demand for political sovereignty by a people for right to self-determination to something about Sikhs and Hindus fighting with each other and they having some communal issues which is now being played out on the streets of US and Canada, that will help them they hope, it is their hope that that will help delegitimize to a certain extent the Sikh for Justice referendum and all their effort. I think it's a very, very sinister ploy. Very, very sinister ploy. We have seen the Indian government do it in the past, and they are trying to do that in US today. And that, I believe, is the end goal of these dastardly acts. And with that, I'll just go to Dr. Amrinder Singh ji. Dr. Saab, go ahead.
So, first of all, thank you for taking your time and organizing this. And this is actually really important for people who are not in the subcontinent to understand the context, the historical grievances, and how things are working in India. And I'll just add to what Viraj Chiranveer said before me, and I can pretty much agree with that and whatever you said. And I'll add one more layer that like what these guys are trying to do is that Indian government is trying to create religious issues so that first of all it becomes a Sikh versus Hindu issue in North America and the Sikh for Justice campaign can be stopped. Secondly, they are trying to show the Indian, maybe not, I'm not for the Indian, but maybe like the Hindu community in North America, because all these organizations who participate in the disinformation campaign and accusing Sikhs for this, not just in the case of America, but even in the case of Canada and Australia in the past, all of them were prominent Hindu organizations, and without a single evidence or any official statement from any authorities, law enforcement authorities or public spokesperson, they accused Sikhs for this. They were trying to create a divide between the Hindu and the Sikh community, and they're trying to say like they're trying to recruit people from the Hindu community to spy on or maybe use them for as an extension. Like they're trying to portray like it's a duty of every Hindu to align with the political goals of Indian state. So not just a religious issue, but they're trying to equate Indian state like that's a political entity as a religious identity over their religion, so that they can recruit them and use them as an extension of foreign policy, and all the while creating discord among the American citizens, irrespective of their religions. Thank you so much for giving me time.
Yeah, no, definitely, Dr. Saab. I think a related aspect in this is this weaponization of Indian diaspora by the Indian government to further its influence within Western society. I have called it I have given it a name. It's called colonization through infiltration. Like it's basically let's send 2 million rabid Indian nationalist youth who are totally kind of enamored with the idea of Hindu civilization, and then let it act as a double agent for the Indian regime. That event is somewhere related here. You are right, but I think it's a separate topic in itself, and we are going to do that. A space on it. How the Indian nationalism is weaponizing the diaspora to basically take down or even destroy some of the best things that we have here in the Western civilization. But I think this particular act, coming back to this particular act of defacing the Mandirs, is pure and pure to kind of now convert. I think they are really rattled by this movement called Sikh for Justice, which is doing this peaceful referendum. And look at the power of that peaceful referendum. It kind of also highlights. It's amazing. I am surprised. Like I don't even know how many people are there in this movement. The Sikh for Justice, and I think Sandhu Paji probably is aware. But I am amazed. Like this handful of people, the only thing they are saying is we are going to ask one question to all the Sikhs, that should Indian governed Punjab be part of India or should be an independent country or not. And that very peaceful one question has really brought out the worst of Indian government out in front of the entire world. And I think due to that, what they are rattled with that movement, they are basically indulging in these cheap tactics. And one of the cheapest tactic is now to convert this into a communal issue between these two communities and bring it to the diaspora. Bring it to the diaspora, especially in the Western society. Now, the moment and confuse the support that West will give to such a movement, and let make confuse my fellow patriots in America into think this is some kind of a communal tribal issue between Hindus and Sikhs. It is not. It's a political issue that is going on. With that, I know Rolapa, you had your hand up, but okay, Rolaji, you go ahead, and then we'll go to Sadhupaji. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I forgot what I wanted to say or what I wanted to add, but one liner only. I think somebody, whosoever is doing this, whosoever is involved, whether it's the government or a group of Sikh psyche, I think they have no clue how Sikhs function as a community or as individuals. So I think they just are loose bombs, and they're just trying to do a few things, and they just backfiring all the time.
Yep, no, that's great. Hanji Sadhupaji, rakho gal. Sadhupaji, rakho tusi. You can go ahead and please
I
speak.
think he left. I think he has bad connection. He left.
Oh, he left. Okay, great. Okay, that's fine. I would have loved to have his take. So that's one. Yeah, in between, like, I have a bit of a person. I think my wife is kind of lost somewhere. She's driving. She's trying to call me up. But the next thing I wanted to discuss was, if that is the goal, right? Look, when somebody plays, like, if that is what Indian government is trying to do, create this fake communal fight between these two communities and use it as a political tool to delegitimize or kind of even reduce the support that the Sikh movement is getting, the referendum is getting worldwide. What should we do? What should be our kind of a response? How we should handle it? Nonihal, if you don't mind, can I give you a co-host? We are not going to run it for too long. I'll give you co-host and maybe into Dr. Saab, and then I will be back in like 5 minutes, and I'll just speak to my wife and make sure she is okay. And if you guys can just take it on, and I'm
They don't have plan.
And actually, they started pointing with these incidents which happened in Melbourne, if you guys remember, a couple of months ago, where the New South Wales police openly accused of some Hindu men who were involved in defacing the temple property. So I think that it's pretty clear why the cameras were not in a working state. But I think like the issue is beyond that. I think like they already, whoever is orchestrating these events, they're already aware about this issue. that they don't want to get to the bottom of it, right? Like the idea is to basically create the sort of sentiment in the communities wherever these incidents are happening, that it's sort of like some sort of communal tension happening between two communities. So I'm like, and if you try to correlate this issue with what we saw with the referendum posters, which were brought down by some of the Hindu nationalist groups, so an image is being created that Hindus are attacking Sikhs and Sikhs are attacking Hindus, and like there is some sort of like communal tension which is going on. But all of us, like, who are sitting here, like, I think like we have some sort of sense like this is far from the truth. So it's not a communal issue, it's a political issue. So Sikhs are basically seeking an answer to a political opinion, like whether they want to remain with India or not. So that's the bigger question that they want to be suppressed, that they want to suppress. And it seems like all these tactics are playing in that narrative. But like Dr. Saab, like if you have any sort of feedback or like any points, like feel free to add.
I'll just pitch in for Dr. Saab. हाँ जी, accountant जी कर लो, तो कर लो. Go ahead, please. If you can speak in English, great, but you can also go in Punjabi. That's fine. You know, we spoke perfectly. Okay.
Maybe, you know, our local organization or Gurdwara committee, you know, after the police, you know, get to the bottom of it. I think it will help the Sikhs, because obviously I'm pretty sure nobody is, you know, stupid enough to do anything while we are running our campaign for the referendum. So if they get caught, like, you know, they find any Hindu organization or anything like that, so you know that they would be accountable to that.
Yeah, I think before we go to even what we should do as a responsible citizens, what I think we should first do is what we should be very clear is what not to do. Once we understand that this is an act to cause basically change a political demand to and kind of label it as a communal issue between Hindus and Sikh, make it Hindu versus Sikh rather than Sikh versus the Indian state, then we know now that what we should not do. What we should not do is basically on social media, in our interactions, do not start blaming the Hindu community for this act. Do not start, abusing them or, having fights with them, because that is what this foreign interference act of the Indian government wants. They want Hindus and Sikhs to fight. They want the diaspora communities to be at each other. They want that ruckus to be created here so that they can claim, oh, look, these guys bought their fight there. So what we should not be doing is fighting with our Hindu brothers. They are our brothers. We like Hindus and Sikhs live in so much peace actually on the ground. There is no issue. And so we have to avoid, on online social media forums creating that impression. What we should focus on is that we have to find the perpetrators. And we have to highlight, that, hey, in Australia, we have to be careful about our language. We have to highlight that it is the Indian government who is doing it. Highlight the right perpetrators of this act. And I'm sure our Hindu brothers will then realize that it is the government that is playing them. And then, highlight these facts. We should also, and definitely not make it like fall into the trap which the Indian government is kind of laying out here for people. And they are creating that work so that Sikhs and Hindus fight each other in diaspora. We should definitely not fall for that. And we should pick and choose our words carefully when we talk about this issue. Once you know that this is their ultimate aim, and also then we can come to what we should do. What is the Indian government trying to do? The Indian government is trying to basically delegitimize the Sikh for justice movement, the movement of Sikhs to ask for to get this right to self-determination. So we should double down on that movement. We should focus on the positive side of it. This is a distraction, in my view, that has been created. We should not overplay it. We should let the law enforcement, we should work with them, tell them to figure out, get the perpetrators. We should meet with them regularly. I think the Australian Sikh community did a wonderful job because they didn't make a hue and cry of this issue. They actually went and partnered with the law enforcement And that is when they got everything investigated, and then they put in right petitions in to kind of get the police investigation report out, which brought the entire facts in front of everybody that it was the Indian government which was engineering all these acts. And I think that that is the type of work that we need to do here, rather than now start blaming Hindus and Hindus start blaming Sikhs, which is exactly what the Indian government is trying to do here. We should partner with our law enforcement and look at the fact, okay, why the CCTV was not working. Obviously somebody was involved from inside, but work with the law enforcement, figure out that we are not going to let you off the hook before you tell us what exactly happened here. It's not okay just to say that somebody came and defaced. This is not just a minor issue. Here is a foreign government which is involved. If it was just an ordinary hate issue, then it was fine. We can take it in stride, and we can, there are always crazy people roaming around. But we know this is not an hate crime. This is a foreign government hostile act on American soil. This is not an act of an individual. So if it is that, then we need the proper agencies working on it, and then getting to the bottom of it, and then telling us, the citizens, that who did it. That work need not happen in public. That need to happen like that is where I say our jathebandis. I kind of tagged them, and I wrote a tweet actually today where I tagged Sikh Coalition, United Sikh, and Dr. Amritpal Singh, Pritpal Singh, who heads the Sikh caucus, that hey, you guys step up, partner with the law enforcement, pull in FBI, CIA, whosoever it is there, and let's investigate it as a trans-border crime by the Indian government, because that's what they did in Australia as well. And then inform everybody from what else is coming, what comes out from that investigation. Let's not just put it under the carpet, the way the SFO consulate fire attack was kind of brushed under the carpet. They punished some diplomats, but then public was never informed, and we, and a member of public, we need to know what's sinister act. While that is one action, I think the other action is that we should definitely double down, especially the Sikhs. And I also encourage our Hindu members of society, and that they should also double down on this movement like Sikh for Justice. There is this very positive movement, referendum going on, which is for the good of everyone. And we should focus on the positive and not get distracted by this negative play. Hanji, accountant ji.
We also run a hashtag Indian government behind this. I totally agree with you, Haji. We should be careful, when we choose our words. Anybody, who's listening or replying to those fake narratives, don't use the word Hindu, use the Indian government.
Yeah.
If I'm right, Haji.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the this is such a sinister play, and I'm going to go to that slide. Think of it from a point of an American who's born here. Like, we came from the subcontinent, so we understand the nuance here. We know that it is not a community versus community issue. This is primarily a foreign government acting here. But we also have to educate our co-patriots. It is not a communal issue. This is a pure attack on our sovereignty by a foreign government. They are hiring these miscreants between amidst us, and then sending them to do these kind of acts. And then not only acts, they are also using their influencer. They have this vast digital empire, like a digital network that Modi government has built, that they are going to use now to play it as a Hindu versus Sikh issue. And oh, look, this kind of violence is going on. These guys are doing this violence, blah, 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 and whatnot. This is pure foreign interference. And our agencies need to wake up. And I think the onus is on us to kind of educate them and not fall into the trap. Be very careful that this is a trap. And then kind of educate let's work with our law enforcement, figure out the masterminds, and then also double down on the positive side. We have a very peaceful and positive movement, which I believe is creating a working model for many repressed minorities and nations, imprisoned nations through the world, which is the Sikh for Justice movement and their referendum, peaceful referendum. We should all back it. So with that, I don't want to kind of belabor it too long. I think we have had enough, and I want to kind of keep it short so people can listen to it. Anybody who's in the audience, but before we go, we'll definitely give the closing words to Dr. Saab. But anybody in the audience who has anything they want to contribute or ask, now is your chance. You guys can request a mic, and then I can bring you up. And yeah, Dr. Saab, meanwhile, you can go ahead and start closing. With anything we missed.
Thank you so much. So, as a conclusion, I can just say, like people, specifically the Sikhs, they need to make sure we don't fight with anybody over religious things. This is not a religious issue. It's entirely political issue, and Indian government is now desperately trying to make it a Sikh versus Hindu issue, and then they will corner the American government, calling it, see, you guys cannot control this religious fight, and we have our methods to control this, and then put the Sikh community under the bus. So it's very concerning, like the Indian government is openly doing this, and it's time even for the Hindu organizations to come out and call out the Indian government how they have been doing this. And the onus is mostly upon the Hindu community to figure out how they can protect their religious sites from the involvement of Indian government and make sure the Hindu religious sites are not an extension of India's foreign policy. And it's time for the Americans, be it Hindus or Sikhs, to come together and overcome this hate campaign that has its roots from India. Thank you.
Yeah, great, Dr. Saab. I think you wrapped up pretty well. With that, I think everybody hopefully gets more insight into what's going on here. And with that, I want to thank everybody for your
I'm
time.
audible?
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking on mute actually in the Twitter space. Sorry about that. I'll just say it again. I want to thank everybody. Okay, yeah. Before we close, we have our brother Sikandar from right across the border, now an American. And so Sikandar Veer, please go ahead and add whatever you want to add. Okay, I think it's his internet is a bit slow. I know he's in Pakistan right now, I believe. I think he's on some kind of a motorcycle trip, and maybe that is why his internet is not working properly. I think it's taking time to connect. We'll wait for him to connect. He generally has great insight on things, and yeah. So I will start jotting down what we should do. Okay, it is still connecting for him. Oh, he's moved on. Sikandar bhai, I'll try to give you the mic here. Let us see if that works. Okay, yeah. Sikandar bhai, can you hear me now?
Ajit Bhaji, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I'm in a very bad internet connection area, network area, so that's what it is. No, I was listening to you, and I think it's you're doing a phenomenal job so far. Almost everything you pointed out makes clear, logical sense. So I just wanted to come up and see if you had something, so I would definitely give my input.
Yeah. No, I'll just recap, quickly before we end. I'll just quickly recap this presentation. It will take me 5 minutes, but then people who joined late, they can understand what all we discussed in video. So this presentation was about transnational repression and foreign government interference in the context of recent defacements of Hindu temples on US soil. That was the topic. And this is what happened yesterday. There were some Hindu temples which were defaced. You can see it. All kind of slogans were written, bad mouthing Modi, the terrorist, all kind of strange kind of the spelling mistakes, all kind of stuff. Like the main board was defaced. I think one of the walls were defaced with graffiti, and this, as has happened.
So basically, it's a deframing of all the Punjabi guys and the Punjabi brothers out in North America, and especially in the US and Canada.
Yeah.
Making it look like they're doing it, right?
Yeah. No, I'll cover it. It'll take me 5 minutes.
But
And
I'll say something very clearly.
Yeah.
I have known the Sikh community for years. Lived in the East Coast, lived in the South America and West Coast as well, and also in Canada. So very, that's not their level. This I could say, me who's not even a Punjabi, I'll tell you that bluntly.
Yeah.
That's not how they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, वो अपने, in DC community, we have one saying, if you want to fight, we'll fight from the front. That's not how they do. This is a childish BS.
Yeah. Yeah.
One question did came along. Someone said, why there isn't cameras and all this stuff? Well, you have to understand, if you're in UK, the way the cameras are set up is completely different compared to US and Canada. US and Canada one is too vast, it's too big. So every single inch cannot be covered. But when incidents like this happen, I don't want to go into conspiracy, but it's always the other party who's trying to play the victim BS card. That they usually do it on themselves and then blame it on the other. And that's been the unfortunate case here as well. So, I mean, if they're coming out saying the Punjabis are doing this, no. I mean, someone who knows them, especially in the US and Canada, you literally laugh at them saying, no, that's not what they do. They'll actually come knock on your door and then say it right on your face. I know them that well. So
Yeah. Sikandar bhai, just hold on. Yeah. Just hold on. Hear me out, and I'll kind of answer. I think my cover up, because you joined a bit late and you didn't cover the initial portion. I'll cover all that for you. I think it'll answer most of your questions. So, so this is what's going on. This Mandir was defaced, a dastardly act that was done, and strangely, this act matches exactly what have happened in Australia and Canada. Again, no CCTV footage was made available. There are CCTV cameras here, and especially in US and California now, there are guidelines where to put the CCTV footage. Like there's not a single inch left actually, where you won't see what's going on. In Australia, early part of this year, a very similar incident happened just before the Sikh for Justice movement was getting a referendum done. That referendum is for basically the Sikhs are running Sikhs belong to a small state in Punjab in the northern part of India, and they are running a peaceful referendum for seeking, a separate independent country out of India. And an Indian government is totally rattled by that referendum. And just before that referendum was going to take place in Australia, these incidences happen in Australia as well, wherein some of the Hindu temples claimed, 3 temples, that they have been defaced. And there was a huge hue and cry. Prime Minister Modi came in and started basically speaking that, hey, Australian Prime Minister, you are not controlling these referendum people. And they are the guys who are basically then, without any evidence, he said, they are the guys who are creating all this violence, etc., etc. So they were using this as the Indian government started using this instance as a tool of foreign policy to pressurize the Australian government to basically clamp down on a referendum and the Sikh diaspora, which is demanding, right to self-determination through peaceful means. So, but luckily, in Australia, when the investigation was done, it came out that the real red flag was that the mandirs or the temples, they refused to share the CCTV footage. One claimed that, oh, their cameras were not working. The other claimed, they don't have the image. One actually flatly refused. And that got the police thinking. And when they dug deep into it, they realized that, okay, this is actually some Hindu youth themselves which actually defaced these temples. So it was basically self-defacement by that community. And it was most probably done on the handiwork of the Indian consulate there, because Hindus and Sikhs have tremendously good communal relationship. There is it's not like, I hate to use the word, it's not like, let us say, Jews and Muslims, and the Hindus and Sikhs, they live like brothers and sisters, they intermarry each other. You go to any, Sikh temple, it's filled with Hindus. And the Sikhs generally don't go to the Hindu temple, but that's a different matter altogether. But in terms of community relationships, there is never any problem. And same way, like even in Punjab, the state of Punjab, Sikhs are 60%, Hindus are 40%. But still, Punjab is the state which has the least amount of communal instances. There have never been a communal riot in Punjab ever, while rest of India is full of communal riots between Hindus and Christians and Muslims and so on. So, so then the question is, why this instance? And this is not the only incident that happened in Australia. everybody was surprised, like how come like so-called Sikh jathebandis are coming and defacing this if they did it. But then the investigation revealed that it was actually some of the Hindu youth doing it on behalf of the Indian government, who were trying to create a division and a fight between Hindus and Sikhs. And we'll talk about it. It was not only in Australia, in Canada as well, the same thing happened. Mandirs got defaced, CCTV footages not available. Suddenly, mysteriously, all cameras stopped working. Same pattern. Then there was another very infamous incident which happened in SFO, where the SFO, the Indian consulate, claimed somebody like a DRTV, which is again an Indian government sponsored TV running out of Seattle. They shared a small footage, 10-second footage, wherein a fire is being lit outside a building, and then they claim that this is the Indian consulate in San Francisco, which has been put on fire by Sikh extremists, blah blah blah, and whatnot. That footage was played all over India, that the Sikhs are putting Indian consulates on fire. And again, the investigation revealed that incident never happened. It was a fake video. Nobody got arrested. And what we do know is that the consul general of that San Francisco consulate was politely asked to leave. And he basically left before finishing his tenure. He is today in Kazakhstan. His name is Nageshwar Rao. You can go and check it on Google. Again, another instance was created, again an engineered instance in Westwood Mall in Canada, which was not like Hindus and Sikhs every year they get together to burn firecrackers, and they do it jointly. Never any instance of any communal violence between them. But this year, there was a group of youth, ostensibly on provocation of the Indian consulate, which came and started shouting, provocative slogans, started, waving provocative flags, basically to start a fight between Hindus and Sikhs. The whole video is available actually on Instagram. You guys can go and check. Again, this was not organic. This was a foreign government intervening in that instance. Same way, like a temple, another like a big statue got built in Brampton. Yes, the statue got built. Everybody should have religious freedom. But the society which built this statue, it is a statue which is standing out, and it has created a debate. And that debate is actually being fanned now by Hindu organizations, and being used to kind of create like, some kind of animosity between Christians and Hindus and Sikhs. All kind of ruckus is being created in Canada, where starting from, the buildup of this statue. And this is all happening in the backdrop of, as you guys can see, everybody is now aware that Indian government has been sending death squads in Canada and Australia, and to America as well, to kill Sikh activists. So there is this backdrop of this global assassination program that the Indian agencies have been running. So my question was, what was the goal? And we discussed all the factors. We discussed, okay, this was to malign Sikhs, this was to create communal divisions, etc., etc. That is why the Indian government is doing it. But this is where we ended up in. What is the real goal? I think these are the two real goals. We all agreed that the real goal here is to divert the attention from the real issue, which is the struggle of Sikhs for right to self-determination. They want to make it a Hindu versus Sikh issue and create ruckus in Western society, and then use that as a point to pressurize American government to clamp down on Sikh diaspora or any diaspora that they have, and tell them that these guys should not bring, their fights to West. So if the issue becomes, oh, there are these groups which are coming from their immigrant groups who are now fighting with each other, and then they are bringing their religious rivalries to America, then we should basically do something to stop them from doing it. So, and use it as a tool to pressurize the American government to clamp down on the Sikh for Justice referendum. That is the ultimate goal. Their aim of the Indian government is to somehow delegitimize the Sikh struggle for right to self-determination. We have seen this play out. This is not the first time this is happening. We saw this happening in 1980s for everybody's education. In 1980s, when the Sikhs actually first started protesting against the Indian government, their demand was full autonomy for the province of Punjab, which is the Sikh majority province in the state, in the Indian Indian state. And what the Indian government did was, rather than treating it as a political demand, which was a political demand, it was a demand for autonomy, they made it a Hindu versus Sikh issue. And it is now an open secret They basically had death squads which will come and kill Hindu citizens, and then they'll try to blame the Sikhs and then create an animosity between Hindus and Sikhs, not just in Punjab, but all across the country. The idea was to basically now a demand which is political in nature, label it as a communal and religious fight between communities. And the Indian government was very successful in it. They converted a political demand for right to self-determination to a communal fight between two communities and projected it as such. And that is how they were successfully able to persecute Sikhs for almost 2 decades. Sikhs have learned their lesson. They have been running a peaceful movement for referendum, where they're saying we are going to just ask people whether they want to be part of India or not. And that has completely rattled the Indian government. And they have been sending death squads, using all kind of diplomatic pressure on US and America. Once that has not worked, they're also using these cheap tricks wherein they are now trying to create, communal dissensions as well as unpleasant, I would call it ruckus or violence between inside US and Canada, so that a debate arises. Why are these immigrant communities, fighting? And if these immigrant communities are fighting, they are basically bringing their communal fights or issues from subcontinent to US. Why should they do that? And basically urge to the xenophobia that probably exists in our society to a certain extent. So, so that is the end goal. We shouldn't let it succeed. And we discussed like how should we handle it as responsible citizens? If that is what the Indian government is trying to do, then I think as responsible citizens, the first thing that we should do is what we shouldn't do. That we shouldn't make it a Hindu versus Sikh issue. We shouldn't now go to to any especially on online space, when our Hindu brother posts something about this, we shouldn't go and start fighting with them. We shouldn't go and start abusing them, because that is what Indian government wants. They want these groups to fight. They want it to become Hindu versus Sikh. They'll also create some Hindu profiles or some Sikh profiles and even post like fake posts on their behalf. We shouldn't fall in that. We should basically do is we should work with the law enforcement and make sure that this is not just treated as a local law and order issue. We need investigation by agencies like FBI and CIA, because this has transnational cross-border foreign government involvement, so that they can get to the root of the issue, and then they can educate and make sure people who did this are held accountable. And then we should also focus on the positive, which is this referendum movement that has been started by Sikhs for Justice. Every right-thinking American who loves freedom, who loves the fact that we individuals are, born sovereign, we should support that movement. It is a movement that the Sikhs have been running for their democratic right for self-determination. It is fully legitimate movement, and it deserves all the support it can get from across the world, from everybody. So with that, I will just take, I think we have discussed all the aspects. Sorry, my voice was a bit not great, because my throat was not well, but hopefully everybody, we covered all the major parts. With that, I'll try to take a leave. We just say that, the Sikhi, we have a prayer, Nanak Naam Chardi Kala. So we ask for the welfare of everybody. So Nanak Naam Chardi Kala, Tere Pane Sarbat Da Pala. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Te Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.